and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to Rover Sports Show. I'm your host, Robert. NCAA college bowl games. 15 regular season weeks. 442 games. Here we are. Bowl season gets underway this Saturday with the first of 39 bowl games. Oh, can we say the bowl season is a little long? There are 39 total bowl games, in which two are the two playoff games, and then we have the 40th bowl game, which is a national championship game. So we're doing 37 bowl games here. The two playoff games will be a separate playoff preview. Of the 39 total bowl games, there is $120.4 million in payouts. And we say college football is not making money. Come on, pay the fucking players. Student athletes are involved in $120.4 million games? Okay. Yeah, Okay, first bowl game we have the AutoNation Cure Bowl, the 4th edition, with a payout of $751,000. We have the Sun Belt versus the American. The Louisiana Ragin Cajuns, 7-6, versus the Tulane Green Wave, 6-6. Tulane is favored by 3.5. I got them winning. I got them covering at 3.5. I'm taking over on the 59. The next, we have the 13th edition of the New Mexico Bowl with a payout of $1.05 million. The Mountain West versus the Conference USA. The Utah State Aggies, 10-2, versus the North Texas Mean Green, 9-3. The Aggies are favored by 9. I have them winning, covering, and over on the 67.5. We have the 27th edition of the Mitsubishi Motors Las Vegas Bowl, $2.76 million payout for the Pac-12 versus the Mountain West, with the Arizona Sun Devils at 7-5 versus the Mountain West Fresno State Bulldogs 11-2. And Fresno State is favored by 4.5. And I have them, the Bulldogs, winning, covering the 4.5 and over on the 51. Next, we have the 5th edition of the Raycom Media Camellia Bowl with a payout of $250,000. We have the MAC versus the Sun Belt Eastern Michigan Eagles, 7-5, versus the Georgia Southern Eagles, 9-3. The Battle of the Eagles. I bet an Eagle wins. I have the Georgia Southern Eagles, who are favored by one. Are favored by 1. I got them winning, covering, and over on the 48. Next, we have the 18th edition of the R&L Carriers New Orleans Bowl with a payout of $925,000. Sun Belt versus Conference USA. The Appalachian State Mountaineers, 10-2, versus the Middle Tennessee Blue Raiders, 8-5. Mountaineers favored by a touchdown, winning, covering, and over on the 15.5. Next, we have the 5th edition of the Cheribundi Boca Raton Bowl with a $1 million payout. The MAC versus Conference USA, Northern Illinois Huskies, 8-5, versus the University of Alabama Birmingham Blazers, 10-3. The Blazers favored by 1.5. I got them winning, covering. I'm taking over on the 43.5. Next, we have the 2nd edition of the DXL Frisco Bowl with a $750 payout. Mountain West versus the MAC. San Diego State Aztecs, 7-5, versus the Ohio Bobcats, 8-4. Bobcats favored by 3, winning, covering, and over on the 55. Next, we have the 11th edition of the Bad Boy Mowers Gasparilla Bowl with a payout of $1.13 million. We have American Conference versus the Conference USA. South Florida Bowl, 7-5. Marshall Thunder and Herd, 8-4. Marshall favored by 2.5. I have them winning, covering, and under on the 55.5. Next, we have the 5th edition of the Makers One in Bahamas Bowl with a $225,000 payout. Conference USA versus the MAC. We have the FIU Panthers 8-4 versus 7-5 Toledo Rockets. Toledo favored by 6. I'm giving the 6 to the Panthers. I got the Panthers as an upset win, giving the 6, covering and under on the 68.5. Next, we have the 22nd edition of the famous Ohio Potato Bowl with a payout of $995,000. The MAC versus an independent. We have the Western Michigan Broncos 7-5 versus the independent team of the BYU Cougars, who are 6-6. BYU is favored by 12. I got the Cougars winning. I have the Broncos covering the 12 and over on the 48.5. The Jared Birmingham Bowl, the 13th edition, with a payout of $1.6 million. ACC versus the American. We have the Wake Forest Demon Deacons at 6-6 versus the Memphis Tigers at 8-4. Memphis favored by 5. I have the winning, covering, and under on the 74. Next, we have the 16th edition of the Lockheed Martin Armed Forces Bowl with a $900,000 payout. Houston Cougars at 9-4 versus the Army Black Knights at 10-2. Coming off the win over Navy last week, the Black Knight are favored by 3. I had them winning, covering, and under on the 67.5. Next, we have the 20th edition of the Dollar General Bowl with a $1.5 million payout. MAC versus Sunbelt. Buffalo Bulls won 10-3 versus the Troy Trojans 9-3. Buffalo favored by 2.5. I then winning, covering, and over on the 53. Next, we have the 17th edition of the SoFi Hawaii Bowl with a $1 million payout. The Louisiana Tech Bulldogs 7-5 out of the Conference USA versus the Hawaii Rainbow Warriors 8-5 out of the Mountain West. Hawaii favored by 1, winning, covering, and over on the 60. Kind of a home team here for the Hawaii, kind of a home game. Next, we have the 9th edition of the Serpro First Responder Bowl with a $1.6 million payout. ACC versus Mountain West. Boston College 7-3 versus the 25th ranked Boise State Broncos, who are 10-3. Boise State favored by 3. I got them winning, covering, and over on the 55. Next, we have the 5th edition of the Quick Lane Bowl with a $750,000 payout. We have the Big Ten versus the ECC. Minnesota Golden Gophers 6-6 versus the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets 7-5. The Yellow Jackets are favored by 4. I'm giving the 4 to Minnesota. I got Minnesota winning, covering, and under on the 59.5. Next, we got the 30th edition of the Cheez-Its Bowl, formerly known as the Cactus Bowl, with a $1.037 million payout. We have Pac-12 versus Big 12. We have Big Boy Football here, 2 of the Power 5 conferences. We have the 7-5 California Golden Gophers versus the 6-6 TCU Horned Frogs. TCU favored by 2. I'm giving the 2 to California. I'm taking the Golden Bears to win, cover the 2 and over in the 40.5. Next, we have the 43rd annual Walk-Ons Independence Bowl with a $1.248 million payout. ACC versus American. Duke Blue Devils 7-5 versus the 8-4 Temple Owls. Temple favored by a field goal. I got them winning, covering, and over on the 56. Next, we have the 9th edition of the New Era Pinstripe Bowl with a $4.3 million payout. We have ACC versus Big Ten. We have the Miami Hurricanes 7-5 versus the Wisconsin Badgers 7-5. Miami favored by 4. I'm giving the 4 to Wisconsin. I got Wisconsin winning, covering the 4 and over on the 47. Next, we have the 13th edition of the Academy Sports and Outdoors Texas Bowl with a $6.3 million payout. SEC versus Big 12. Vanderbilt Commodores 6-6 versus the 6-6 Baylor Bears. Vandy favored by 3.5. I got them winning, covering, and over on the 55.5. Next, we have the 21st edition of the Franklin American Mortgage Music City Bowl with a $5.65 million payout. Big Ten versus SEC. The Purdue Boilermakers 6-6 versus the Auburn Tigers 7-5. Auburn favored by 4, winning, covering, and over on the 54.5. The 29th edition of the Camping World Bowl, payout of $5.8 million. Big 12 versus ACC. 16th ranked West Virginia Mountaineers at 8-3. versus the 20th ranked Syracuse Orange at 9-3. West Virginia favored by 7. I got them winning, covering, and under on the 75. Next, we have the 26th edition of the Valero Alamo Bowl with a $7.975 million payout. Big 12 versus Pac-12. 24th ranked Iowa State Cyclones 8-4 versus the 13th ranked Washington State Cougars 10-2. Washington State is favored by 4. I got them winning, covering, and over on the 54.5. The 17th edition of the Belk Bowl with a $4.5 million payout. ACC versus SEC. Virginia Cavaliers 7-5 versus the 7-5 South Carolina Gamecocks. Gamecocks are favored by 4. I got them winning, covering, and over on the 54.5. Next, we have the 51st annual Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl with a $4 million payout. 10th ranked Florida Gators at 9-3 versus the 7th ranked Michigan Wolverines at 10-2. Wolverines favored by 7.5. Got them winning, covering, and over on the 50.5. Next, we have the 4th edition of the Nova Home Loans Arizona Bowl with a $413,000 payout. Sunbelt versus Mountain West. Out of the Sun Belt, the Arizona State Red Wolves 8-4 versus the 7-5 Nevada Wolfpack. Arizona is favored by 1. I'm giving the 1 to Nevada. I get Nevada winning, covering that 1, and under on the 59.5. Next, we have the 11th edition of the Military Bowl presented by Northrop Grumman with a $2 million payout. We have the 10-2 Cincinnati Bearcats out of the American versus the ACC's Virginia Tech Hokies at 6-6. Bearcats favored by 5, had them winning, covering it, under on the 53.5. Next, we have the 85th edition of the Hyundai Sun Bowl with a $3.4 million payout. Pac-12 ACC. The Stanford Cardinal 8-4 versus the Pittsburgh Panthers 7-6. Cardinal favored by 6.5. I got them winning, covering, and over on the 52. Can we say there's a bunch of bowl games? Alright, next, the 17th edition of the Red Box Bowl with a $3.6 million payout. Big 10, Pac-12. The Michigan State Spartans at 7-5. The Oregon Ducks at 8-4. Oregon favored by 2.5. I do have them winning, covering, and over on the 48. Next, we have the AutoZone Liberty Bowl, the 60th edition, with a $4.2 million payout. We have the SEC versus the Big 12. Former Big 12 competitors. We have the 23rd ranked Missouri Tigers at 8-4. Now in the SEC versus the Big 10 Oklahoma State Cowboys 6-6. The Tigers are favored by 7.5. I have them winning, covering, and under on the 74. We have the 41st edition of the San Diego County Credit Union Holiday Bowl with a $6.3 million payout. Big 10, Pac-12. 22nd ranked Northwestern Wildcats at 8-5 versus the 17th ranked Utah Utes at 9-4. Utah favored by 6.5. I got them winning, covering, and over on the 45. The 74th edition of the Tax Slayer Gator Bowl with a $3.1 million payout. We have ACC versus SEC. We have the NC State Wolfpack at 9-3 versus the 19th ranked Texas Aggies, Texas A&M Aggies at 8-4. Aggies favored by 4.5. I got them winning, covering, over on the 58.5. Next, we have the 33rd edition of the Outback Bowl with a $6.3 million payout. SEC versus Big 10. The 18th ranked Mississippi State Bulldogs at 8-4 versus the Iowa Hawkeyes at 8-4. Bulldogs favored by 6.5. I got them winning, covering, over on the 44.5. The 73rd edition of the VRBO Citrus Bowl payout of $8.5 million. Also, SEC versus Big 10. 14th ranked Kentucky Wildcats at 9-3 versus the 12th ranked Penn State Nittany Lions at 9-3. Nittany Lions favored by 6. I've been winning, covering, in over on the 48. Next, we have the 48th edition of the PlayStation Fiesta Bowl with a $4 million payout. We have the SEC versus the American. Really? We have the LSU Tigers at 9-3, who beat Georgia this year, versus the 8th ranked UCF Knights, who are 12-0. As much as I want to see an undefeated team like the UCF against some of the big boys, LSU, I mean, yeah, they got 3 losses, but LSU is favored by 7.5. I think the Tigers win this. I got them covering the 7.5 and under on the 55.5. Next, we have the 105th edition of the Rose Bowl, presented by Northwest Mutual, with a $4 million payout. Pac-12 versus Big Ten. Washington Huskies 10-3 versus the 9th-ranked Huskies. 6th-ranked Ohio State Buckeyes 12-1. Ohio State is favored by 6.5. This could easily be one of your 4 playoff games. I mean, if Ohio State wouldn't have had the one loss to, who the hell did they lose to? I don't remember. They lost to Purdue. That ugly loss to Purdue. They would have beat Purdue. They've been 13-0. They've been in the playoffs. The Huskies, 3 losses. They could have, maybe one loss could have got them in. This could be one of the playoff games easily. It's going to be a good game. I do have the Buckeyes winning, covering the 6.5 and under on the 58. And last but not least, the 85th edition of the All-State Sugar Bowl with a $4 million payout. Big 12 versus SEC. Again, this game could easily be one of your 2 playoff games. We have the 15th-ranked Texas Longhorns at 9-4. Tom Herman's got them playing so great. They are almost there. The 11-2 Georgia Bulldogs, who are ranked 5th. Georgia lost to Alabama, and they lost to LSU. Without the loss to LSU, if their only loss would have been in the SEC championship game to Alabama, they may have been the 4th team in. But they're not. Here we are. Georgia favored by 11. And then winning, covering, and over on the 58. So those are your 37 your 37 bowl games. The Goodyear Cotton Bowl and then the Capital One Orange Bowl are your 2 playoff games. Notre Dame, Clemson, Oklahoma, and Alabama. Stay tuned to Robert Sports Show for the NCAA College Football Playoff Preview, when I'll preview those bowl games and all the playoffs. So make sure you check that out. Obviously the NFL through the end of the regular season. So we got, including the bowl preview, 3 NCAA football videos left on the season. We have the bowl games, playoff preview, and then the championship preview. And then we're done for another year with Robert Sports Show. As always, thanks for watching Robert Sports Show. Now just have a great day. Have a spiffy day. Robert Sports Show, your YouTube leader, sports channel content.